We're gonna go through some of the points that the Dirshu Mishna makes on Siman Reit Tzadi Beis over here, which we're up to. And then after we do so, we're gonna give an elaboration that they don't really elaborate on certain points, which is fine. We're gonna go through some of the main points. Okay, so we're gonna start with footnote number 1. We learned together previously. We were talking about Vanis Filasi. So I'm just gonna screen share what's going on over here, and then we will discuss what the Dirshu says about it. It says in Shulchan Aruch that we say Vanis Filasi before we take out the Sefer Torah on Mincha and Shabbos. We say Vanis Filasi. Mishnah Berurah comments. This is based on a medrash, and we saw this quoted by the Torah, that we are unique when we eat and drink. We basically praise Hashem and we stay on the right path. Okay. On Mincha and Yom Tov, you don't say it because you don't lean from the Torah. Okay. On Shabbos, you would say it if Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos because you lean from the Torah. Even on Shabbos, we saw in the Mishnah Berurah, a person would say Vanis Filasi, even if he's davening by himself and if there's no Sefer Torah. So we see that we need two things. Number one, seemingly a time when we're able to eat and drink. Number two, a time when we're laning. That's when we're saying it. On a Shabbos or Yom Tov in particular. And at Mincha, it's an auspicious time. Fine. So the question arises, why do we say Vanis Filasi during Yom Kippur? If Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos, so now you're laning, right? Yom Kippur in general, should you say Vanis Filasi? Why or why not? In particular, this Shaila really is on Shabbos Mincha when Yom Kippur falls out on Shabbos. We said that if there's a collision, if Yom Tov in general, Yom Tov falls out on Shabbos, then we would say it. Question is, what about Yom Kippur? Because we're not eating based on this medrash that was quoted. Person turns over to the halachas of Yom Kippur in Siman Tafresh Chav Beis. He will be perhaps surprised to find that the Shulchan Aruch explicitly says that you would not say Vanis Filasi. You would not say it.
Why would be surprised?
Well, because you always say it on Shabbos Mincha. It's the only time when you don't say it. It's the one and only time when you don't say it.
But based on that neder,
correct. Correct. It does make sense if you know the medrash. Correct. But it's the only time. The Mishnah Berurah over there explains, because we don't eat. Simple. Closed case. Right? People ask, what are you learning? You tell them Hilchos Mincha, they really can't talk about it for more than 3 minutes. They say, what's there to talk about? Right? When you learn the thing properly, though, you'll see there's a lot to discuss. Okay, let's discuss another point, which is very relevant. Very, very relevant. Actually, not very, very relevant, but it could come up and you have to know what to do. Let's say we know at Mincha and Shabbos you're supposed to read from the next week's parsha. Okay. Sometimes it's confusing what the next week's parsha will be. For example, let's say this past Shabbos, maybe someone thought you should lay in Bahaloscha. Right? Messed up. Whatever. I don't know. Right? You lay in the wrong parsha. Could happen also from going from Israel to America. Sometimes they're off. So you read the wrong parsha. Right? So the question is, what do you do? Right? You realize after the laning, someone come over and was like, you did the wrong one. On Monday and Thursday, you laned the wrong parsha also. What do? Do you need to go back and lane again or not? Or are you covered? So over here in footnote 2, they reference the Mishnah Berurah in Siman Kuf Lamed Hey, Sifkat and Dalid, who says there's an argument what to do in this case. It's machlokes. This just piqued my curiosity because it doesn't happen often, but it's interesting. And when you're researching something properly, you say, great job, Dirshu. Now what? What do I do practically if this happens? So I was kind of blaming them because they didn't come out with the conclusion. I turn open the Mishnah Berurah, forgot what it said over there completely, which it's actually the recordings are blah, but I forgot. It's a nuance. It doesn't happen often. That's the way that Hashem created this world, that we forget what we learn if we don't review it properly. And I turn back to the Mishnah Berurah, and that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. It's a machlokas.
That's how it ends off.
Yeah, no psak. He doesn't say what to do. Says it's an argument. Finished. So now
I mean,
what's going on in my mind, my thought process is, all right, Dirshu didn't mess up, but what's the bottom line? What's the argument even based on? What's it based on? So what do? I go to the Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Berurah. Okay. The Oz V'Hadar Mishnah Berurah in Siman Kuf Lamed Hey. And I was thinking, should I make a PDF for you guys? Should I not? And I said, you know what? Let's go for it. Why not? So I made the PDF file so we could learn about it properly together. Mishnah Berurah Daled, right over here. This is a quote. It says, "V'im tov akaru lahashloisha kiruyim b'parsha rishona. Shall seder shavua over or shall shavua haba la'achar shavua zeh." In other words, you're laying the wrong thing. Imu ma'ake b'di'evet olo. Does it count or not? Ayin b'pischei tshuva shehi v'deos achron b'zeh. That's it. That's the Mishnah Berurah. What is this based on? Here we go. Yesh some say she'im karu kol shloisha sakiruim parsha acheres ein tzarich lachzer v'klor b'parsha shvua. Why? V'she'ikr takanas kriya sheni v'chamishi ein el kedei shelo yishu shloisha yamim beloy tayr. Why don't you need to go back? Well, what's the reason that we lane from the Torah on Monday and Thursday? So very briefly, it's in order that people don't go for a duration of 3 days without learning Torah. Therefore, we make sure that minimally you have Torah every 3 days, and it was established that you lane from the Torah every Monday and Thursday. If a person goes a certain amount of days without drinking, he'll die of dehydration, right? Eating also, if you don't eat a certain amount of time. Torah say is our spiritual food, and if we don't consume it or drink it, Torah is compared to water, we will spiritually waste away. Look at the parentheses, because this has to do directly with what we're doing. V'chein b'Shabbos b'mincha. Let's talk about Shabbos and mincha over here. Tam hatakana mishum yoishvi karanus. What's the reason for the enactment? Why we lane on Shabbos? Yoishvi karanus. What's yoishvi karanus? Who remembers from what we did a few sessions ago?
we said sitting in the corners, they're just sitting talking idly.
Exactly. They're talking idly. They're just sitting around.
Sicha b'tela.
Sicha b'tela. So we said, let them get some Torah on Shabbos rather than just sitting around, because during the week, they're not just sitting around talking. They're working, they're making money. But Shabbos, what are you going to do if you can't make money? Right? So you're going to just sleep and eat all day, talk. So they said, okay, it's a time to learn, right? That was one of the explanations that we saw for Yoshvi Karanos. What was the other explanation? We saw another one.
The Yoshvei Kronos?
Yeah, we saw a few we spoke out. Right? The keren goes in through one ear, out the next. That was a cute thing. And we said he opens up the beginning of the page. But there was another idea also that we saw for the Yoshvi Karanos. We saw another idea. It goes right over here. Yeah, this is there. Yeah, this is the Aruch. The Aruch and the Sharatzion actually quotes this in Kuf Lamed Hey. He says, at the beginning of Kuf Lamed Hey, yeah, that it was a means to an end. In other words, you would get people to shul, and once they were already in shul, then they would either hear the drasha, or they would learn themselves in shul. So this was basically bait to reel them in. Fine. Going back to over here, we see that the purpose of the laning on Monday, Thursdays, and Shabbos is basically to get people learning. So if you lane, albeit the wrong laning, b'di'evid, at the end of the day, post facto, you're good.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished because they got their Torah. Mission accomplished.
The other reason.
Okay, we'll go to that in a minute.
I don't know what it is.
Well, the simple explanation is this is what the rabbi said, delaying.
Right,
Delaying the
right.
wrong thing. I mean, you don't need to come on to a chiddush. But let's see what they say. The kevan shekaru b'toyra yatsu deichava, so good. The obligation you made for Torah. V'yesha ha'isifu loimer she'af im nizkaru la'achar shekvar kara echad u'shnayim yikra sheni v'shlishi parsha shavua. Let's say some add tremendous insight. That let's say, okay, after the first or the second aliyah, someone's like, you're laying the wrong thing. Some say you could still finish whatever you were doing. End of story, because you got the Torah out there. People are learning. So nowadays it's funny because, not funny, but, this wouldn't really apply. Because anyone who's a Yoshvi Karanas, who isn't really learning, probably doesn't know what's being read from the Torah in terms of translating and everything. And furthermore, most people, even if they do know the translation, they don't really pay attention on Monday, Thursday, and mincha and Shabbos. I would assume they don't pay attention in terms of, translating in their head or thinking about what's actually being read. Most people just, I feel, this is my personal opinion, just like space out. Some people don't even have a siddur open or a chumash open to follow. And even people who are following, are they really focusing on the trop and the meaning and what's actually being discussed? But fine. Maybe there are some people who know the translation and who do follow, but are still Yoshri Karnas. Maybe. I don't know. I feel like not so many nowadays. That's just my personal opinion. I think it's accurate. Yeah, but the point is that so they say, okay, you got it. You don't need to now go to the correct parsha if you laid already the first or second aliyah. By Tamishum Gezerah. Okay, so the reason for that is people are gonna walk in and be like, what is going on over here? And they're gonna say they're basically doing the wrong laning, right? However, some argue. And they hold that no, if you lane the wrong parsha, it's ki'ilu karu klal. It's as if you didn't read from it at all, because this is what the rabbi said. Rabbi said you have to lane this week's parsha. And if you didn't fill what they said. Period. Veisha yisifu because some add to this and they write even more over here. Shafilim kar b'parsha shavua. Aval loy b'sechilos again. Let's say we're reading from the right parsha, but for some reason you didn't start in the beginning of the parsha. Yachru v'yikru v'bachla mitchilosav. Then you should return and read again with the bracha from the beginning. These are the types of halachas. They don't happen often. Well, when they happen, you got to know what's going on. So at the end of the day, seems like according to the Mishnah berura at least, you could really do whatever you want. You could go back and read again, or not go back.
So why wouldn't specific brachas lahakol come into play here? That listen, hey, we're not sure it's machlokes. Better not to do the second one.
Correct. So maybe some would entertain that possibility, and say 100%, 100%. If we come over to the Piskei Teshuvos, you're already alluding to what he's saying over here. He says many achronim agree she'ena davar ma'akiv. Wouldn't be ma'akiv. You would fulfill your obligation with the wrong laning. V'mkfar karu gimel gavri ein lachzor v'lekro yeshu b'parsha shvua. And therefore, if you already finish the laning, don't go back and lane again.
Mm-hmm.
However, if 3 people didn't go up yet for the aliyahs, so the other one should read the right parsha. Okay, so it's kind of saying you're good, but if you caught it midway, go to the right parsha. Come on.
Does it matter if it's, I think the only situation that is going to be applicable is if it's Eretz Yisrael, Chutz La'aretz, and does it matter if you go back or forth? Like if someone from Eretz Yisrael goes back here and they read the same parsha twice, as opposed to us going forward and missing a parsha.
No difference. It has to be the parsha of that place. If it's not the parsha of that place, it's the wrong parsha, whether it's one before or after, whether they're doing that in Israel or not. Yeah. All this is referring to, by the way, laning on mincha on Shabbos
Oh,
and on Monday and Thursday. But in the morning on Shabbos, if you made a mistake and you read the wrong parsha, for sure you need to go back. That for sure is as if you didn't do it at all.
mhm.
That is quite an important ruling. Okay? So this is only talking about mincha. Do not get confused. Mincha and Shabbos, Monday and Thursday, which are more lenient in nature.
Hello?
What
Yeah.
about Rosh Chodesh?
Setzich.
What about Yom Tovim? Right? Person read the wrong parsha. Also, you would not fulfill your obligation. It says if you didn't read it at all.
So did you throw in Chol Hamoed?
He did not.
Chol Hamoed on Pesach, you have each one a different reading.
Yes, he did not say that. It is a good point coming from the mouth of a Baal Koreh.
Third string quarterback.
Okay, whatever. Still, that is a good point. That will require further research when we get the Siman Kuf Lamed Zayin properly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Meaning, it's as if you didn't lane at all. Okay. So this basically is, just what I wanted to screen share over here. Wanted to just bring that up so we could all see it inside together.
Just mentioning about just curious about Haftorahs.
Haftarahs? What about it?
That could happen more often.
Yeah, we're gonna have to learn about that when we get there. But by the way, we do have like after this Siman, we are gonna be learning the next Siman and which is Hilchos Ma'ar, but shortly thereafter we're gonna be learning about the davening on Shabbos, meaning the laning. Also, Haftorahs, like that is on the immediate list of something that I want to do. Haftorahs on Shabbos. Want to learn about it properly. Where does it come from? What's going on with it? They get switched a lot. It gets confusing. There's a lot of different customs in there. So I definitely want to do that next. So just
Oh,
put this out there now.
I'm curious if there's any Haftorah that we never lane because it's either double parsha or it falls out
If I remember,
Erev
I
Rosh
think
Chodesh. If there's any Haftorah that we never lane.
long time.
Yeah.
Something like before Kosa or Baha.
It's a whole.
There's one Haftorah out there. I forgot which one
Look,
it
if we're
was.
gonna start schmoozing about Haftorahs,
Okay, sorry.
no, it's fine. I just like want to say like the whole thing again. This is coming from like myself, like most people, they don't research it properly, and or at least I haven't yet, but I'm planning on it in the near future. But like the whole concept is very interesting. You're just literally taking small sections of random parts of Nach, which tie in to something that you're reading about on the actual parsha, and you put it there. Where does that come from? Like, why do we do that exactly? And the significance, but many times maybe, there's multiple candidates and options of what to do. And when something overrides, when it's so there's definitely a lot to discuss. Mistakes are done. That happens. So, well, that's what's there to discuss. That's supposed to be missing parts of davening, right? But okay. Let's continue in the Dirshu notes over here. Okay. There's a interesting question which sometimes could come up. An interesting shaila. If someone, if a minion, let's say they weren't ready, people were coming late. It happens even in the shul over here. It's a large shul, but the last mincha minion on Shabbos for some reason doesn't get sometimes so many people and people come late. So let's say you're right near sunset, Shkia. Right? There's not going to be enough time to lane from the Torah and daven Shemona Esrei before sunset. Not enough time.
Does that include Shliach Tzibur or just we're talking about?
Let's say either there's not enough time for the Tila Balachash or Chazar Sashatz. No, or let's say one. You can't do both. Meaning, you could extend the shaila. You could be medivar mamurim and tweak it and apply it to. Okay, I can't finish laning and the silent Shemona Esrei before sunset, or new shaila. I can't finish laning, the silent Shemona Esrei, and Chazar Sashatz before sunset. Yeah. So what do you do? So they quote over here the Hamak Bracha, who says, well, maybe it's better to lane from the Torah first. Because Tefillah has Tashlumin, which we already discussed a little bit. You could make that up. You could daven your mincha Shemona Esrei after Mariv.
That's what we do, though. Oh, I mean, did say lane, and then what do you mean? We lane
Saying
first.
lane.
Yeah.
Forget about Shemona Esrei. You missed it.
You missed it.
You missed it, David. You make up your Shemona Esrei after Mariv. You do
Oh, well.
Tashlumin.
Even if you're a couple minutes after Shkia, you saying?
Oh, we'll see.
Okay, he doesn't. He's not talking about the exact minutes. We're saying it's too late to daven.
Well,
It's too
yes,
late to daven. It's too late. You have to wait too long.
we're speaking about Zmanim in general.
Yes,
So what are they referring to?
after sunset.
After sunset, okay.
Especially according to the Mishnah Berura, right?
Yeah.
Berura is very tight on
We're
that.
gonna discuss that more in Reish Hamachalf about this man. Okay.
This is all based. The whole thing's based on Zmanim.
Right, meaning the technicalities of it. So tefillah you can make up. However, maybe because the laning isn't a chayva kokach, it's not so obligatory as we've already been learning about. It's really only for the Yoshvi Korana. It's a takana. It's an enactment from Ezra, not Moshe. And Moshe is the one who said Monday and Thursday.
All right.
So it's even less than that. Okay.
Okay.
Maybe it's better to daven Shmona Esrei. So he doesn't rule. He doesn't pass in the Shiloh. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in the Shulchan Shlomo, which I actually looked up. I have the Sefer also in physical print also. He says very short. You daven first. Shmona Esrei.
Really?
Yeah.
Point blank. Okay.
Now, he doesn't specify if after Shkia you daven Shmona Esrei or you lane or not. He doesn't specify that. We're gonna have to go through the tshuvas from the Shalosh Tshuvas Nishma Shabbos of Harfinis. If you look in Peleg Beis Siman Tov Ayin Zayin, they don't quote this in the Dirshu, but he also rules this way that it would be better to daven Shmona Esrei in this case.
I'm also
These
thinking right now.
tshuvas, by the way, they're not going to take so much time to go through. I'm just saying. What'd you say?
Is there ever a time that's been enacted where we lane after Shkia
The only time we do is Simchas Torah. That's it.
or Simchas Torah?
That's it. And that's we're gonna have to learn why it's an exception.
Hard from this possible. That's why it's interesting because
Yeah.
they don't hold by Zman.
Right,
Maybe
but
they're, maybe they're
no,
he's talking this
they hold by Zman, and eventually, when you get too late, they hold of that you can't do it also, right?
So his shki would be 45 much.
I don't know. We'll see when we do Reish Hamachal. I'm
Okay.
sure he's gonna write about it. Okay. Shaila, another interesting shaila that comes up. Let's say at the time of Mincha and Shabbos, you didn't have a Torah. So you daven Shmona Esrei, right? Tefillah Shemona Esrei. Okay, so what do you do in that case? So they quote from the Shiles and Chuvas Leiv Chaim and the Ksoisa Shulchan, who says you could lane from the Torah after davening, which is a tremendous chiddush. Because usually first we lane and then we daven Shemona Esrei. Over here it's saying if you didn't have the Torah that was available and you already davened, right?
Yeah.
So then you should lane after you daven Shemona Esrei.
COVID Shiloh.
Yeah, okay. It's also implied from other posting. Okay, fine. So Shulchan adds that says in this way you should say Chatzi Kaddish after laning. That's based on what we learned about in the past, right?
On
We
Shabbos
said
Mincha?
again. We learned in the past. What do we do? You say Chatzi Kaddish after Valutzion, before Vanis Filas. Okay, good. After laning, you don't say one. Usually we always do after you lane. Mincha, you don't. Okay. That potential Kaddish gets covered by the Kaddish we say right before Shemona Esrei. After Shemona Esrei, you can say Kaddish Shalim, and then you have Kaddish Asim, right? For the fine. So, in this situation, it would look like this. You would say Uvalutzion. You would say Chatzi Kaddish.
Straight into Daven.
Go straight into Shemona Esrei.
You're missing a Chatzi Kaddish.
Right, you're missing it. But after Shemona Esrei, you say a Kaddish Shalim. Then you lane, and then you would say a Chatzi Kaddish. But that Chatzi Kaddish has nothing to do with the Kaddish before Shemona Esrei. but you have to do the Kaddish for the laning itself. The Eshel Avram, the Buchacher, says that it could be that this would only apply on Monday or Thursday. However, on Mincha and Shabbos, you would not lane from the Torah if you already daven Shemona Esrei. Why? Because the main enactment to lane Mincha and Shabbos was to lane before Shemona Esrei. I think that's controversial. Meaning halachically, I think that's questionable.
That's interesting. Sorry.
Yeah, it is, but we know it's Yoshvi Karanos. Right? So if it's Yoshvi Karanos, Mali, who cares if it's before the Shemona Esrei after? You're doing it for the Yoshvi Karanos. I want to just two more notes. This is a very common child that could happen. Footnote 8. Let's say the Chazan messed up and he said Kaddish Shalim after Shemona Esrei, and he was supposed to say Sid Koscha. Do you say Sid Koscha after the Kaddish Shalim but before Alena? It's a very common child. Right, correct. Reb Chaim and the Sosa Shulchan says you would.
Let's say like they clocked and they said, like they thought it was a day of Tachma.
Correct. But the question is, let's say you only realize after Alena you're supposed to. So good, you say it, but you say Kaddish after.
Because of those three psukim.
Yeah, three psukim. And we're going to learn more about three psukim saying Kaddish.
Those three psukim are for, say you said before the Kaddish Shalom.
Right. That's already a good shiloh.
Maybe you're supposed to say, the three psukim you're supposed to say,
I didn't say that.
Kaddish, because they're Rabbanim.
He says forget about Kaddish. You don't do it.
You have people chaparine and they're not supposed to.
He says you don't do it. You know why? Because the Sharei Ephraim says if it's psukim milukotim, if they're disconnected, if they're just gathered psukim and they're not all together, so to say, they're not one like paragraph, unit, then you wouldn't say Kaddish. We're going to be learning more about that, correct? That's going to be, that Sharei Ephraim is going to be huge. Yeah, we're going to, exactly. What about adding aliyahs? And we're going to end with this shiloh. This is the last note in the Dirshu, footnote 3. That's worthwhile.
The only time you're allowed to add is
right, you're not allowed to. Why not?
That was an enactment.
Right. Why not? So in Siman Kuf Lamed Hey, Sifkat and Gimel, why was it enacted that way? Talks about laning on Monday and Thursday. Even if there's a chassan, someone's getting married that night, you just got married a few days ago, if someone has a bris, you don't add. Why? Mishnah Brew and Beis over there says you don't want to be mavatel ha'amemalacha. People got to go to work. You don't want to drag out davening more than needs to be. Shabbos, that doesn't apply though. No one's working on Shabbos. Comes along the Machasisa Shekel over there and says, since the drasha is going, the shir is going to go until nighttime, the rabbis didn't want to burden the congregation more by making them stay longer with more aliyos. That's reason one. Reason two, the Pri Megadim and Reish Pei Beis says that even though the reason of working on Shabbos doesn't apply, lo chilku chachamim, lo plug, the rabbis didn't differentiate. They said during the week you don't add aliyahs because you don't want to burden people and take them away from their work. So then so too on Shabbos we keep that, and that same idea applies, which is interesting because then why can't you just say lo plug on Shabbos also? But okay, fine. Yeah,
we had the thing that we don't want to,
especially we don't want to delay it more with the Balatzion according to one reason.
And then people make
correct.
Aliyahs.
Correct. It's ridiculous.
It's
such a waste of time. I personally have been at places when they gave me aliyah. I didn't want to be rude. I was going to say, just forget about it. I don't care. I don't
see
need
in the Dirshu, there are big guns that say it's totally allowed.
I know. What's totally allowed?
To make as many.
Yeah, I know. So that's why. Okay, that requires more research. Correct. This would also apply. Right. Okay. Reason 3, and lastly, you got to eat shalashudas. Oh, so for eating, you can't drink. But the morning you got to eat. The answer is shalashudas. It's more time sensitive, maybe. I don't know. It's what to think about. Look, all this requires even more research, but at least we're doing some research. All right, so Mitzvah Hashem, we'll continue next week. Everyone have a wonderful Shabbos.
Sure.
Yeah, good.
Take a look at the notes in the Kiddush Levon and see what's going on.
Yeah.
I had some guy like ran away. A good friend of mine ran away right after he had.
If he's gonna if he's got to go, he's got to go. But
yes, but
the people
they just don't understand how important it is.
Who are consistently not dancing at the Kiddush Levana or saying statements like, I remember one time I was in a certain place like, oh, we don't do that over here. Like, we don't do that over here. Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
You gotta That's why the whole thing, all this gray stuff, people, they're doing this, they're not doing that, they're doing that, they're not doing this. It ends up just turning into you don't end up doing anything, especially with the next generation. Terrible. You have to keep it the whole way. You have to be consistent.
Okay.
Yeah, meiachos. Exactly. All right.
All right, how's everything in the home front? The wife doing